True, but this is not a game where you had limited ammunition. This was a game where your gun had infinite bullets, your bow had infinite arrows. You just had to reload. Okay, like yeah, you couldn't pick up arrows after firing them, but you didn't need to be able to. People complaining that there was no NPCs walking around in town. There were NPCs walking around in town, but I will admit that the town did not quite seem very full of life. Maybe there wasn't enough NPCs. There was like one guy eating an apple, and he was just eating the same apple forever. Like he needed to be like walking a circuit, eat an apple, something more. It very much looked like they set up like a good base design for a town, and then like later they were going to add more, and then never got around to it. So I do grant you the feedback that the town could have looked like had a little more life in it. Like people maybe they didn't have to like all go to bed and have day night cycles or anything like every NPC in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But eating the same apple for the entire length of the game is a bit ridiculous. They should be doing a little something. Give them like three things to do and they just bounce between them. I don't know. A few people complaining that there was no fish in the ocean. On one hand, I think that's a silly complaint. Like you can't, there's no underwater combat, and you can't fish. Like you can eat fish, you can buy fish from the merchant and eat it, and you loot fish off of bodies and eat it, but you can't like just fish. However, at the same note, the ocean looked beautiful. Like they did a lot of work making it look gorgeous, but there's nothing there. There's no fish, no sharks, no sea life, nothing. Maybe one treasure chest. Like it was really rare to find anything you could interact with in the water. And so it did seem again like it was unfinished. Like they had made that like that whoever was in charge of like the land did an awesome job and then no one came in and filled it in with anything. It did feel like that in the water area. Again, no quests really took you out into the water area, so that's not a huge deal. However, this is a $70 game. And as it stands, I would say I had a lot of fun playing this really good $50 game. That's still positive praise. However, I think that when you set a price tag of a game to be $70, you set some really high expectations. And I believe that people are totally allowed to nitpick you on things that you fail to do if you don't include a bunch of if you're going to charge $70 for your game, people are allowed to nitpick, okay? And people nitpicking, and so there's a lot of stuff like that. I still had an absolute blast playing it, but if you're thinking about getting it, strongly recommend get it on Game Pass. If you've never used Game Pass, it's like $1 to sign up for a couple of weeks, okay? But it's free on Game Pass right now, or wait for a sale because $70 is crazy. Like $70 is a really freaking high price tag. That said, I still had a lot of fun. Story wise, let's see. Let's do companions first. The companions were decent. I wish there were more of them. I was reminded of Dragon Age Inquisition. You would bring some companions. They would talk script to each other. I actually, dude, Kai and the dwarf, I can't even remember his name. The dwarf, Kai and the dwarf, they would talk shit to each other constantly about like it was your turn to do laundry and stuff like that, and it reminded me of Alistair and Morrigan. Now, Alistair and Morrigan, still their banter is a 10. Kai and the dwarf was maybe like an 8, but it was good. It was good. It was refreshing, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Each of them had their own drives, their own personality, their own wishes. They were not shallow characters. Like Giata was annoying, but she was written well enough. It's just that they were writing a personality that was like nails on a chalkboard for me, so I found her irritating. But I always had her in the party because she was the only healer. That's another thing. Kai was a warrior, Marius was a ranger, and Yatsley was a wizard, which are the three things you can be. But Giata was a support healer animancer. You couldn't do that. So it felt really bad not having her as one of the two people in my party. So she wasn't required, but it felt bad not having her there. I really liked the weapon system, you basically you could weapon swap between two different sets. There were synergies you could do. Like I actually took a trait where whatever my off set was, it would reload while I wasn't in it after 3 seconds. So it would basically encourage like weapon swapping because your gun would be reloaded again after 3 seconds. I liked that, graphically, whatever weapon you weren't using, you could see it like on your back. Like if I had my sword in hand, I could see my gun holstered onto my back, stuff like that. It was really solid. There was, I would say the writing for the game as a whole was like 8.5 to 9 out of 10. There was a couple of moments where there was a really weird plot hole, but most of the time it was good. Not stellar, not amazing, but good. It was good. Like for example, the biggest plot hole that I can immediately think of in this moment was, how did I kill God? Like, we fought all that way to get there, and there was a few moments where we were fighting Jawodica, and Jawodica's like, you've got to kill Sapadal. And one of the dialogue options was, how can I kill a god? And I clicked something else intending to ask this question, then ask this question. But when I asked this question, it proceeded past that point of the dialogue tree, and I could not ask, how am I supposed to kill a god? I don't know how we did that. That's a massive freaking plot hole. So we got to this god, opened the prison, and then stood before her, and then just said, no, you die now. Like, was there a button on the console for, like, flush God or something? Like, I have no idea. But not only did we, rip her apart on a molecular level, we then absorbed her power and used her energy to teleport across the living lands. And I guess then we lost the godly powers because we didn't have any crazy powers after that, except for the, summon the big robot thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I might browse some YouTube videos later and see if I can figure that out. But the fact that I like read everything and then after playing it, I don't know how I killed God is a pretty freaking big plot hole. I do think the other thing with Ludwin like keeps getting back up until you break her faith. I'm okay with how they handle that. Because at first, Giada's like, I've got a plan. And her plan was just run in and fight her again and don't die. And I was like, well, Giada, you didn't even have to be here then for this plan. That was stupid. However, I did like the idea of if we break her willpower, she rage quits. We've got to beat her until she rage quits, chat. Yeah, that's it. And so, like, even during the fight, you knock her down and she gets back up like 5 times. And then finally, she doesn't get up again. Her spirit is broken. I think that's okay. I think that's a decently written way to end her existence based on what we knew about her. Her being a Death Knight or whatever she was. She's held together by sheer force of will and faith in her god. And we, a being that our existence goes against what she believes in, we just keep beating the crap out of her until she gives up. Like, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. Yeah. So, yeah, overall, I liked the game. I will give it a positive review. I do think it is overpriced. If you're going to play it, I encourage you to play it on Game Pass. Or wait for a sale. I got 50 hours out of it. A lot of people were telling me I was going to get 15 to 20, but I did every side quest I could find. There was a couple I didn't successfully solve, so there was a few more that I didn't finish, but I did every side quest I could find, finished the side stories for all the companions, and I think that really goes to show how much fun I was having. I think that's it. I think at this point I'll start repeating myself. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I definitely enjoyed it. I hope the studio does okay. I've never had this concern before, because like Veilguard did very poorly, and Veilguard Studio got shut down because they lost so much money making the game. As a gamer, I'm not surprised at it. I'm not celebrating that people lost their jobs, but I'm not surprised by it. While they were making it, people were saying, we don't want that kind of thing in our game. Like, it's like they made a thing that was, woke. My point is, it wasn't for the people that had been following. Like, if it was a standalone game and it wasn't attached to the Dragon Age franchise, like, it would have done even worse. But it only did as well as it did because it was already piggybacking off the Dragon Age name, and then it was a crap show. So, not really surprising it has happened. But I feel like most of the complaints about Avowed are not warranted. Like, after trying it for myself and going through it, I don't think those complaints are warranted. However, I do think $70 is too high a price tag, and that opens the door to a lot of criticism because if you're pricing your game like a AAA perfect game, people are going to grade it as such. And if it doesn't meet those expectations, they're going to hammer you for it, and they're getting hammered for things like, oh, there's no fish in the water. So stuff like that. Mike, did you get the Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 references? Some of them. I played Pillars 1 and 2, but it has been a long time. I remembered I loved them, and I remember bits and pieces, and there were things in this game, like people having another awakening and remember their past lives. I remember a guy in Pillars that had that happen to him, and he was going insane because his past life, he was a serial killer. And in this life, he was just like a good guy. He was a good boy. And then he remembered like all these serial killer memories, and he was going insane because it was just like, this old version of him was like, let me out. So like seeing Yahtzee have her awakening and remembering her past life, I'm like, oh, like I remembered that from the other game. But do I remember every detail? Certainly not. It's been a while. It's rusty. I feel like the price tag is Microsoft's fault. It might have been. It might have been. But yeah, that's it for Avowed. Finishing it there. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to make a review video that says like all of these things in detail. There was a couple of other minor complaints that I wrote down. And just to recap those, leashing. Leashing was a big problem. If mobs got too far from their spawn point, they would just snap back to it. So if you just stood right at the edge of their spawn, you could shoot them with a ranged weapon and they would die and not fight back. That's stupid. I feel like that should be changed in some way, shape, or form. There's no mana regen in the game by default. Someone told me about a mana regen ring in the first zone, and I used that item through the entire game because it feels stupid not having mana regen. That's kind of silly. The inventory is kind of clunky. I got used to it. It's fine. I'm just not a fan of it. Let's see. Lock picking. I don't love that you go up to a lock and it just says you need 5 lock picks to open this. Like, am I just like grabbing them by the handful and shoving them in the lock until it opens? Like, what do you mean? Like, not only do lock picks break on every single lock, but some locks, it's just you pay 5 lock picks. I think that they got really lazy with not making an actual lock picking system. And then jump and dodge being the same button. My top 2 complaints are definitely the leashing and then jump and dodge being the same button. Let me separate those. That felt awful. But yeah, that's it. What about the Yahtzee requirement? Oh, yeah. Yeah, like if you had Giada in the group, she could open anything that required electricity. But if you didn't have her, you could use electric grenades to open those things. Which is why I had so many grenades at the end, because I just was opening them myself. Kai could open fire. And Marius, I don't even remember what Marius could do for his special thing. But Yahtzee got rid of illusions. There was no other way that I could find to get rid of illusions. So anything that was illusion-based, if you didn't have Yahtzee with you, you couldn't access it. So that was kind of silly. But yeah, like, the lock picking, the no mana regen, the leashing mobs, the jump and dodge being the same button. I would say if I could change 2 things about the game, the leashing mobs and the jump and dodge thing would be it. But okay, there we go. I think I covered everything. I had a lot of fun playing this game. I really enjoyed it. I do mean that. I'm going to make a positive review video, but talk about all the issues I had later on. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And we are off to the next one.